Squadron 42 had its most recent gameplay demo shown at CitzneCon, a yearly convention for fans to gather and see new updates about Star Citizen and Squadron 42. Squadron 42 is a single-player game being made in tandem with Star Citizen, the MMO you've heard lots about. Today I want to focus on the live demo of the prologue of Squadron 42 that we saw, the good and the bad, and give thoughts on what we might be able to expect from this game when it aims to release in 2026. I poured over this trailer, so this isn't just an initial reaction video. If you want the full deep dive, I recommend checking out my live stream on it, as this will be a very condensed version. The live stream was 3 hours of great conversation. Here I've categorized all of the good and bad into 5 categories of interest: visuals and performance, directing and pacing, gameplay, writing, and blatant mistakes that need fixing before release. The first great thing we have to mention are the visuals. I don't think anyone was worried for a moment that this wouldn't be a stunner of a game. CIG has been constantly evolving their engine to showcase amazing visuals, even in the MMO of Star Citizen. We'll go over how pretty it was in a second, but let's hit performance. First off, the big one. There were crashes. Twice during the demo, the game had crashed, which is the risk of showing a game in a beta during a live demo. Chris mentioned 10QA and himself played that morning with no issues, but different PC setups can cause problems like this.
Something wrong with his computer.
Chris blamed the PC, and while it very well could have been the PC, at the end of the day, these scenarios need to be covered and sorted before release. I don't mind it much though, because we did know the game is in beta state, which means these things are still likely very common. The only other technical issues we saw were some texture poppings like this, and some shadows like this, and some character faces shifting dimensions, noted here and here. Alongside that final phasing was an issue where the gun didn't transfer from the player back to the NPC, causing a full progression blocker, it seemed. Seemingly, and keyword seemingly, minor stuff that should be ironed out fast. In terms of visuals though, the showcase was actually pretty clean, with frame rates at a much more acceptable level than we've come to expect from this engine. Lighting has been overhauled, skin textures leveled up, and overall visual clarity, even in battles, was super clear. It was easy to see what was happening despite all the chaos. We had so many incredible moments, like the Vanduul Kingship firing its cannon. I love this design. The visuals on the Vanduul themselves are gorgeous, and by God, the music that plays for them is incredible. Just listen to this. I know music is kind of stepping away from visuals, but you know what? I'm on a train of praise right now. Let's keep that going. Another thing we knew wouldn't be an issue was the acting. With a cast of folks such as Gary Oldman, Mark Hamill, Gillian Anderson, Henry Cavill, Mark Strong, and many more, this game could potentially ride on these performances to save it if the story ends up being lackluster. Now, I mentioned chaos when it came to these battles. Let's keep that word and theme going here as we move on to directing. There was some up and downs. For the most part, I think there were some wonderful shots, like the Vanduul and Bishop framed and cut and clear dichotomy. There was overall consistency when it came to the shot angles between the human fleet and the Vanduul. Left to right, right to left, the conversation moved forward. Humans were mostly shown with high-angled or eye-level shots, giving us a sense of them feeling on the defensive, but our friend, respectively. The Vanduul were shot with low angles, helping cement the looming threat and power they had in this moment. While not subtle in any foreshadowing kind of way, it's fundamental, and I like to see it. Now to my issues though. Pacing suffered often in this demo, from gameplay to the live cutscene editing. I'll touch on gameplay next, but in terms of the storytelling, we had a few times where the directing choices were a little bit questionable. I'll give you one example, otherwise this will turn into a 3-hour live stream again. Before the Vanduul arrive, we have establishing shots of the Navy. We've seen the reactions of the soldiers as they wait for battle, and it's very clear that the fleet is simply waiting nervously. When the Vanduul arrive, we have some wonderful shots establishing their might. Unfortunately, the directing choice was to cut back to about 4 long shots that serve realistically no purpose. We already know the fleet is waiting. This just feels like a self-insistent look at how pretty our game is section of shots. And please stop with the crash zooms. I know I use them in some of my footage, but like once in a video. But in my opinion, the time during these shots could have been used better. Either cut those shots entirely and go straight to this last Vanduul shot. They end their motion, which signals the end of their arrival sequence, and now we can go back to the humans to see what they're thinking. Or instead of useless shots of the ships that we've already established, go to some more human reaction shots. Now that the Vanduul are arriving, show us the rookies' anxiety and fear. We're humans, we connect with humans, not metal ships. While it's fun to include shots just because they're pretty, they should also be serving a forward motion at all times. Going back to establishing shots is the wrong direction. These shots do not bring us forward in any way, be it story or character. Now this is just one example. Other decisions, like having no one else communicating in the background during the war room scenes, takes away from the chaos happening. I know chatter can overwhelm audio, but even having moving lips on these guys can solve these small things. Or how about the hammerhead sinking in space? Like, I get that this isn't how real space combat would go, it's very Star Wars-y, but that just sticks out like a sore thumb. We see this oddity later with things inside the ship falling when the ship turns sideways. I'll let it pass though, because hey, at least it looks sexy. While you could argue these are all nitpicky things, the issue for me is that they signify some larger systemic problems, that the directing often makes choices that doesn't help the story in favor of highlighting itself. It's self-insistent. But as I mentioned before, the game feels like it will have some wonderful moments, like the reveal of the fleet, or like this quantum boost sequence from the hidden fighters on the asteroids. Shots like this one are just epic AF. I'm not questioning things because of realism. The way I approach it is looking at what the intentions of the director are and trying to find out why things were put on screen. Overall, I'm happy with the directing, but this director has often made decisions that feel very B-movie or not thought out, while working on a Hollywood set, so it stands out. And this is just the prologue. This is where you hope things are tight, but these things do start to stand out a little bit more when it compounds with the pacing problems in the gameplay too. Since we did just talk some negatives here, let's start the gameplay off with the great stuff. Right off the bat, I love that they made the intro screen feel diegetic. Screens and menus being a part of the universe is something core to the design philosophy of CIG, and it's evident in Star Citizen. And I love how that expectation is immediately set. After that, let's talk some small details we probably all missed on the first watch through. While following Marcus, his quest is marked as optional. This indicates a level of choice will be present in the game going forward, but here I think it's simply just to walk around the mess hall and get some extra lore info. As you can see, interactable spots on the seats appearing. I also like that you can find extra lore info by listening to conversations. I just hope this turns into an actual mechanic for the game, maybe giving you better intel and later stealth missions if you choose to go off the beaten path and learn things. Now later, we have what seems like a choice, to leave McLean or to save her, but the mission does say to leave with her. The way they look to the escape pod and then back indicates to me as a player that I don't have to save her, but that could have just been an odd choice for the person playing this demo. I had hoped this was a big branching point for the player, but we'll obviously have to wait until we get a hold of the game to know. Now for problems, right off the bat, these turret sections are too long. This is the first real gameplay we get, and I think it's a great introduction, but it does go too long. I had a friend who does not know anything about Star Citizen send me the trailer saying this looks fire, but he also agreed the turret section was a little too much. It stems from a few issues. The first is engagement. This is the first time a player is getting to have any action, so it's fun no matter how simple. But the issue is that it is simple. The entire section is played with one hand. Also, I don't know if this is just a bug or if we're regaining health for kills here, but why are we regaining health on difficult mode? Which then exacerbates the directing problems I had earlier. This section could have done with eliminating a couple of these final light fighter battles and just gone straight to the cutscene, or required the user to switch between their firing modes a lot more often. The EVA section, while not problematic on its own, unfortunately carried on the slow and restrictive pacing of the play the player had seen up to this point. While I get that it's a prologue, at least offering a couple routes the player could have chosen to at least keep the player mentally engaged would have been nice. I do also wish maybe we could have been shown a fail state here as well to know that there is a challenge. Because from our perspective, this is just another on-rails experience with no mechanical or mental challenge. I'm guessing if you just walk into the lightning, you'll die, sure, but I'm guessing maybe 1% of players are going to do that. Then we move on to fighting the Vandul, which actually ties into my issues with writing, but it was kind of weird to see this player on the hardest difficulty, with some of the worst aim I've ever seen in my life, not die once. Experienced gamers are going to crush this gameplay without being even hit. Again, I get it's a prologue, but the hardest difficulty should be hard, because as I mentioned, this kind of adds on to my problems with the writing. Again, my goal when critiquing anything is to try and understand the intention of the writing and directing. And a lot of this prologue was seemingly being used to set up two things. Bishop is smart, great leader in war, and the Vandul are scary as hell. The problem with the second one is that a lot of the writing goes thoroughly against what the directing's been trying to do. They're at odds with one another. For example, spooky scary. They look terrifying. Honestly, I do not want to be in a room with this guy. This feels like I'll be needing to take cover and sneaking around alien isolation style. But then you get a gun and drop one with seemingly no worry at all. This wouldn't be much of a problem if literally 1 minute before a trained soldier just died for no reason at all didn't happen. Dude is having a casual conversation when he knows the Vandul is right behind him. If I could kill it, he could too. And this brings us to a major plot armor problem. Our soldiers all died? Ran away on escape pods? How did McLean survive but no one else? Keep a few soldiers alive and we're good. Our rookie should be having to earn his rise to hero, not in the prologue already being better than the trained military. I need close calls. I need the Van Duel to feel terrifying. While they look it, they certainly don't feel it in battle. So, we have a rookie getting kills on the big bad aliens in the first battle, no trained soldiers getting kills, just getting killed, and him getting lucky enough to be the only survivor after falling 80 feet, getting boarded, and has to EVA through space with a helmet that does not seal his body in. It's unfortunately at this point, trope mountain. While tropes aren't inherently bad, you don't want to put too many together. People get lucky. That's Master Chief's from Halo and Holden's from The Expanse's whole thing. But the Chief is a trained professional, and Holden is surrounded by talented people. But the soldiers around Chief also get kills, and Holden's colleagues also survive. Now, trained soldiers dying is not unrealistic. Of course some are gonna die. Panic can set in for some individuals during war. This is real, but on a ship built for war, the chance of all of them panicking is just, well, unbelievable. Then we get to the rookie getting kills on these huge aliens. This one's less problematic in itself, but you see how when you tie it in with the other scenarios that are improbable, that trope mountain gets larger and larger. Now I'm gonna keep going on some of the issues I had with the writing, but keep in mind, overall I walked away with a positive experience. But remember, this is a review. So next up, there were a couple of moments of dialogue that railed this into that B-movie territory I mentioned. First off is this line.
What are they waiting for?
Brother man, Bishop just told you they have a kingship 5 minutes ago.
This means a kingship is headed our way.
Maybe ask, where's the kingship? You guys can look out the window and see that there's no discernible ship that's different and larger than the rest. All of these little small details start to add up. Then there's the issue I had with the whispered go.
Go.
While it isn't the worst offender here, with the dialogue, it did make me say why. Like for the audience, it obviously communicates, haha, I'm tricky, I had an ace up my sleeve. But to lean in and whisper it to the camera, it's very unserious and tone deaf to the mood that they've just been setting up. I would have preferred him maybe lift a radio to his head to make the call. You could have kept his tone without the cheesiness. See the whiplash I'm starting to get between terrifying and tropey? Now, on to the blatant mistakes. Now I know all of this has been nitpicky, but it looks Hollywood budget, exceeds Hollywood budget, so I tend to treat it with the same scrutiny. But maybe you don't care. But these next things, no one can ignore. I've already mentioned one, but there are two massive mistakes that have to be fixed before release. The first one is the obvious one. The helmet. This helmet is simply put, not space-worthy. Motherfucker is dead. Done. No more to say. There are no what-ifs about it unless they have some sort of tech like the ship deck force fields for people. This
Sealing suit
means nothing. Unless you're saying we don't need EVA suits in this universe now that we have force field seals, which isn't a problem if they do, but that's not ever been established. And in Star Citizen, that's certainly not how it works. The second one is this call right here.
Argus is down. Repeat. Argus is down.
So how did Argus get hit? Unless me and my chat were missing something drastic here, Corvus was the one that you sent forward, not Argus.
Argus, shift your position back and drift 8 degrees off x-axis. That should bring that Moiler into your field of fire. Corvus, redirect to fill the gap and take those gunboats off integrity.
A bit of a blunder to miss that one. Hopefully that's an easy fix though, since it does seem like just a voice line to fix. But it feels like the weight of recording all of this almost a decade before knowing what the final product would look like is the result of some of these inconsistencies and ups and downs that I've had with it. So let's tie it all together. I know I focused on a lot of negatives here, but they did compound by the end of this 1 hour and 16 minutes. It's not often we get a decent sci-fi epic like this. So while I wasn't overly interested in the game to begin with, my interest still lies more in the MMO Star Citizen, I will play it, and I think I'll have a lot of fun with it. Particularly if the choices I mentioned earlier have a real impact on my playthrough that allows me to go back and discover more stuff, and I get to have some memorable and epic set-piece moments like this. I think the actual directing of it might be a little weak compared to movies and even other games, but at least the voice acting is there to hold it together. If we even get 1 or 2 great moments of dialogue with a great acting performance, those should hopefully stand out over the mediocre directing we saw in the prologue. Overall, I love the many references to other sci-fi IP of the past, and I love the over-the-top nature this presents. I'm ready to have fun. All in all, because of these inconsistencies, I suspect a 70 to 75 out of 100 on Metacritic, so long as the game isn't a buggy mess. We've seen so many terrible launches from large game companies recently, so this one needs to at least be smooth, even if it isn't particularly stand out when it comes to story. Perception of Star Citizen is also going to be affected by people's response to this game. so it's extra important to get this right. I'm excited to be proven wrong and the rest of the game be super tight and consistent. And if that's the case, we might have a Game of the Year on our hands. Either way, thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and check out some of my other videos. And if you like this deep dive, feel free to support the channel by joining. You'll get some emotes and access to videos like this early. I know you have opinions, so we'll see you in the comments below.